Picture this. You're standing in a wooden conference room in the middle of a Prussian forest. The summer heat is suffocating. The air smells like stale tobacco and mildewed pine. Your wool uniform clings to your back, soaked through with sweat that has nothing to do with the temperature. 6 feet away, Adolf Hitler leans over an oak table, jabbing his finger at a map of the Eastern Front, screaming orders about divisions that were annihilated 3 weeks ago. His left hand trembles. Flecks of spit fly from his mouth as he demands a counterattack from an army that exists only on paper. Your right arm ends in a stump just below the elbow. Your left hand has 3 fingers. Between those 3 remaining fingers, you grip a leather briefcase. Inside that case, 2 pounds of British plastic explosive are counting down. The chemical fuse activated 7 minutes ago. You have less than 3 minutes left. But here's the thing that should make your blood run cold. You're not some Allied spy who parachuted behind enemy lines. You're not a communist saboteur with nothing to lose. You are Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg. You are a decorated German war hero. You are a member of the Prussian aristocracy, and until 18 months ago, you were a true believer in the 1,000-year Reich. If you fail, if that bomb doesn't kill Hitler, the Gestapo won't just execute you. Under a law called Sippenhaft, collective family punishment, they will arrest your wife, your 4 children, your elderly mother, your brothers. They will be sent to concentration camps, their names erased, their bodies fed into a system designed to make entire bloodlines disappear. You are about to gamble everyone you have ever loved on the placement of a briefcase. The clock is ticking. Hitler is 6 feet away, and you need to leave this room in the next 30 seconds without anyone noticing the sweat pouring down your face or the fact that your hand won't stop shaking. So here's the question that matters. How does a man who once saluted the Führer become the man who tries to kill him? And why does his failure teach us more about the cost of resistance than any victory ever could? Before we dive into one of the most desperate gambles in human history, if you're interested in the real calculations behind the moments that changed the world, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this, and please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. To understand how a loyal Nazi officer became an assassin, we need to go back 18 months, to the moment everything changed. April 7, 1943. Tunisia. The North African campaign is collapsing. Rommel is gone. The Afrika Korps is surrounded. Allied air superiority is absolute. Claus von Stauffenberg is driving a staff car through the desert, trying to reach the front lines before the entire position falls apart. He's a lieutenant colonel at this point, chief of staff to the 10th Panzer Division. He's good at his job, methodical, efficient, the kind of officer the Wehrmacht loved to promote. The sound hits first, a screaming howl that drops in pitch as it gets closer. Then the world explodes. 2 American P-40 Warhawk fighters scream out of the sun, their 50 caliber machine guns tearing through the thin metal of the staff car like it's made of paper. The rounds don't just wound, they shred. Stauffenberg's right hand disappears. Just gone, blown off at the wrist in a spray of bone fragments and arterial blood. His left hand takes multiple hits. The ring finger and pinky are mangled beyond recognition. His left eye is destroyed by shrapnel. His right eardrum is ruptured. His knees are shattered by fragments from the dashboard. When the medics pull him out of the wreckage, they're not sure there's enough of him left to bother saving. He's lost nearly half his blood volume. He's going into shock, and the nearest field hospital is 2 hours away, over roads that are actively being bombed. But Stauffenberg survives. 3 months later, he's lying in a Munich hospital bed with 1 eye, 1 hand, and 3 fingers. The physical pain is constant, but it's not what breaks him, it's the visitors. Friends from the Eastern Front come through Munich on leave. They sit by his bed, and they talk, not about tactical victories, not about the glory of the Wehrmacht. They talk about what they've seen in Ukraine, in Belarus, in Poland, mass graves, burning villages, the Einsatzgruppen, special murder squads, executing entire communities that had nothing to do with military operations. Old men, women, children, shot at the edge of ditches and bulldozed into the earth. And here's what Stauffenberg has to sit with. The regime he served wasn't just fighting a war, it was engineering genocide. And every day he wore that uniform, he was complicit. By September 1943, he had made his decision. He was going to stop it, even if it meant betraying every oath he'd ever sworn. The conspiracy that pulled Stauffenberg in had been growing in the shadows for years. It wasn't a sudden impulse. It was a network of officers, diplomats, and clergy who had watched the Nazi regime cross lines that couldn't be uncrossed. The architect was Henning von Treschow, a major general who'd already tried to kill Hitler once. In March 1943, he smuggled a bomb onto Hitler's plane disguised as a bottle of liqueur. The detonator froze at high altitude. Hitler landed safely. Treschow retrieved the bomb before anyone noticed, sweating through every second. That failure taught him something critical. Killing Hitler wasn't enough. They needed to decapitate the entire Nazi leadership in one coordinated strike. That's where Operation Valkyrie came in. Valkyrie was an official Nazi plan, signed by Hitler himself, designed to restore order if there was ever an internal uprising. Treschow realized they could hijack it, kill Hitler, activate Valkyrie, and trick the reserve army into arresting the SS leadership under the pretense of stopping a fake coup. It was brilliant, and it required someone with access to Hitler's briefings to deliver the bomb. That's where Stauffenberg came in. In June 1944, he was promoted to Chief of Staff of the Reserve Army, which gave him access to Hitler's military conferences. And because of his injuries, nobody suspected the crippled war hero. The conspirators gave him a British plastic explosive with a chemical pencil fuse, crush a glass vial. Acid eats through a wire. 10 minutes later, it detonates. Silent, deadly. But here's the nightmare. Stauffenberg had 3 fingers. Arming a 2-handed bomb with one mangled hand was nearly impossible. He practiced for weeks in his apartment. And he wasn't just gambling his life. Under Nazi law, if he failed, the Gestapo would arrest his wife, his 4 children, his entire family. Collective punishment. They'd be erased from existence. He was betting his entire bloodline on a briefcase. July 20th, 1944. Stauffenberg flew to the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's fortress in East Prussia. 3 security zones, 11 checkpoints, 2,000 SS guards. Getting in with a bomb was insane. But he was expected. A crippled colonel wasn't a threat. He passed through every checkpoint. Nobody searched the briefcase. Then he learned the briefing wasn't in the concrete bunker. It was in a wooden barracks. The entire plan was built around concrete walls reflecting the blast. In a wooden building, half the force would escape through the windows. The bomb would only kill if placed right next to Hitler. Stauffenberg had minutes to arm the bomb. He armed only 1 block of explosive instead of 2, half the power. He had no choice. 10:42 a.m. He entered the barracks. Hitler hunched over maps, screaming about divisions that didn't exist. 24 officers crowded the table. Stauffenberg pushed through, set the briefcase next to the oak table leg, as close to Hitler as he could get. Then he walked away. Mein Führer, I have an urgent call from Berlin. Hitler barely looked up. Stauffenberg crossed the compound, got in his car. Inside the briefcase, acid ate through copper wire, silent, inevitable. 6 minutes left. First checkpoint, waved through. 5 minutes. Second checkpoint, papers checked. When was 4 minutes? They passed the outer ring. Then the world erupted. The roof lifted off. Black smoke punched into the sky. Debris rained down. Alarms screamed. Stauffenberg watched through the rear window. No one could survive that. Hitler was dead. He made it through the final checkpoint, his plane already running. By the time he was airborne, he was drafting Valkyrie orders in his head. But 400 miles away, something impossible was happening. Adolf Hitler was standing up. 4 men died instantly. But Hitler survived. His trousers shredded, hair singed, right arm damaged. But he was walking, and within minutes, absolutely certain someone had tried to kill him. Why did he survive? The wooden barracks dissipated the blast. And seconds before detonation, an officer named Heinz Brandt moved the briefcase to the far side of the oak table leg, farther from Hitler. That unconscious movement saved Hitler's life. Within 20 minutes, the Gestapo locked down Berlin. Find Stauffenberg. No one leaves. Stauffenberg landed in Berlin at 4 p.m. thinking Hitler was dead. He drove to the Bendler block and told General Fromm to activate Valkyrie. Fromm called the Wolf's Lair. Is the Führer alive? Yes. Where is Stauffenberg? Fromm tried to arrest him. Stauffenberg pulled his gun and arrested Fromm instead. By 5 p.m., Valkyrie was active. Orders went out across Germany. In Paris, Vienna, Prague, Wehrmacht units arrested SS officers, seized communication hubs. For 2 hours it worked. The regime was eating itself. But in Berlin, the plan collapsed because of Joseph Goebbels. When a reserve army unit came to arrest him, Goebbels picked up the phone, called Hitler, and handed it to the officer. The Führer would like to speak with you. Hitler's voice came through. Hoarse, furious, alive. The spell broke. At 1 a.m. Goebbels broadcast across every radio in Germany. The Führer is alive. The traitors will be punished. The conspirators knew it was over. Just after midnight, loyalist troops stormed the Bendler block. They freed Fromm, who immediately convened a court-martial to prove his loyalty. 5 minutes, no defense, guilty, death by firing squad. Stauffenberg and 4 others were dragged to the courtyard. No blindfolds, just headlights and rifles. As the squad raised their weapons, Stauffenberg shouted, "Long live sacred Germany!" The rifles cracked, he fell, and Hitler's purge began. Over 8 months, the Gestapo arrested 7,000 people, 30 arrests per day, every day, for 240 days. This was industrial-scale purge, tracked with IBM punch card systems, a primitive social network algorithm that served death sentences instead of ads. The regime invoked Sippenhaft, collective family punishment. Stauffenberg's wife was sent to a concentration camp. His 4 children taken to an orphanage under false names. His brother executed. Treschow detonated a grenade in his own hand to avoid torture, hoping his family might be spared. They weren't. Hitler ordered the primary conspirators hanged with piano wire from meat hooks. Why piano wire? It's thin. It doesn't snap the neck. It strangles slowly. Why meat hooks? They couldn't stand. They hung by the wire, choking, feet dangling for minutes. Hitler had it all filmed. He watched during meals. This wasn't justice. It was a message. This is what happens when you resist. So what if the bomb had worked? If Hitler died on July 20th, 1944, would it have mattered? The Allies had committed to unconditional surrender. The Soviets were 400 miles from Berlin. The Holocaust was in full operation. Even if the conspirators had ended the Nazi regime that day, they couldn't undo 5 years of genocide. Here's the truth. Stauffenberg and the others didn't fail because the bomb was in the wrong place. They failed because they waited too long. They only acted when Germany itself was going to be destroyed. They weren't trying to save the Jews or the Poles. They were trying to save Germany from its own choices. By the time they moved, it was too late. But it still matters, because it proves that not every German was a Nazi. Even inside a totalitarian system, even when resistance meant the death of your entire family, there were people who said no. Stauffenberg wasn't a hero. He was complicit for years, but in the end he made a choice that cost him everything. And in a world where most people looked away, that choice, however flawed, however late, is worth remembering. Because here's the question. If you were in his position, inside a system you knew was evil, how long would it take you to act? A year? 5? 10? Or would you tell yourself you couldn't make a difference, that it was safer to keep your head down? Stauffenberg waited, and by the time he acted, millions were dead. His resistance became a footnote instead of a turning point. The lesson isn't that resistance is futile. It's that resistance delayed is resistance neutered. So where's your line? What would it take for you to risk everything? And if that moment came, would you recognize it before it was too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story changed how you think about complicity and resistance, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thanks for sticking with me. These are the stories that don't let us off the hook. I'll see you in the next one.